Hey guys, welcome back to another Call of Duty Talk with Richie and Pine. Today we will be reviewing the CDL Atlanta event this past weekend, in which Atlanta FaZe took home the victory in their home series. Let's start with the Saturday round one matches. They all seemed kind of they all went how we kind of expected them to go. Minnesota took a 3-1 victory over Paris. We kind of predicted that simply because Minnesota is stronger in the respawn games. Um, we also had London beating Florida, which they took the series 3-1. Toronto actually showed up against Chicago and took them to 5 games. Chicago ended up winning the series though, 3-2. Atlanta just rolled over um, Optic LA. For some reason, Optic just can't figure it out. Chicago beat Minnesota in a 3-1. Paris took 3-1 against Toronto. Atlanta took a 3-1 against London. And again, Florida took a 3-1 against Optic LA. Um, Pine, how'd round two go?
Round two is a lot more shocking than round one, in my opinion. Every game except the finals went to 5 maps, which I think surprised a lot of people, especially the casters while I was watching the event. First game of round two, Minnesota versus Paris, that was a 3-2. It was actually a very intense series to watch. Minnesota really did come to play this event. They took down Paris twice, which is an incredible feat because Paris is an incredibly strong team. But Minnesota played out of their mind this week, and kind of proud of them for doing that. Florida taking down London 3-2. Second game of round two was actually very impressive to me. I didn't think coming into this event that London was that, or that Florida was that strong of a team. Sorry. Um, I really thought London would have had the advantage in that matchup, but it turns out Florida's a lot stronger than a lot of us thought we were. So they took that series 3-2. Moving on to the semifinals. Both of these were reverse sweeps, which was actually insane to watch. It was one of the most intense tournament endings I think I've ever seen. um, Atlanta FaZe reverse sweeping Minnesota. I don't think there was any reason at all they should have been down 2-0 in map count to start. Minnesota had no business being up 2 maps to Atlanta in any series, no matter the maps. But Atlanta did get it together. They turned it around, got the reverse sweep, won that 3-2, which was, like I said, incredibly impressive. Florida doing the same thing to Chicago, which when Chicago went up 3-2, I thought it was over. I thought we were all going to see the finals we wanted, Chicago versus Atlanta. But Florida dug deep, Pristini's leadership, Mox being team captain, leading those guys. They played incredibly well, turned it around, won that game 5 on Gunrunner S&D, and we got to see the Atlanta Florida finals, which I don't think many of us expected to see, but I think we all pretty much expected Atlanta to win this thing. There were a few Chicago fans, myself and Richie included, that really thought Chicago was going to carry that momentum over from London and win this thing, but Atlanta's just too strong of a team to beat, man. They're incredibly good at the game. All 5 of their guys from top to bottom, they have no weak point. I'm really interested to see what they do in the next tournament in a few weeks in Los Angeles. But some of the points we wanted to discuss about this tournament, we'll start off with the struggles of Optic Gaming LA. Richie, how do you feel about how that team's playing right now?
I don't know what their problem is, man. I mean, you go down their starting roster. I mean, they got Dashy, Slasher, JCap, TJ Haley, and Kenny Cuevo. I just don't like all of these players right here. I mean, they're dons at this game, man. Like, I don't like. Are they just not a good mix of like players? Like together, they just don't mesh well. I don't know what I don't know what they have to do. I don't know if they have to go try and dig deep into like a substitution roster to try and figure out who is going to mesh well together. I don't know. I don't know enough about this Call of Duty. Like, can they like release players and pick players up? But they need to figure something out because for some reason these 5 players just can't mesh together, and I don't understand why. You got anything to add to that?
No, I totally agree. Like you said, those five guys on that roster are incredible individual players. You know, Dashi and TJ last year being two of the top guys in Black Ops 4, JCap having 2 rings, Quavo and Slasher both being incredible individual players. You know, Quavo with the SMG and Slasher with the AR respectively, but I just don't understand why these guys can't mix. I don't know if they're not taking their scrims serious enough. I don't really like to assume things about different teams, but these guys really need to get it together and they need to do it quick because they're still sitting with a donut in the CDL points category. They need to do something, especially leading up to their homestand. They can't go to their own tournament and get embarrassed like they have the past few weeks. It's just not a good look.
I totally agree. They need to come up with something, man, because they are just showing nothing so far in these first three. Or well, they've only been to two events, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, they've showed nothing in these first two events. So hopefully they, with those names, they need to figure out a way to turn it around. Um, Another topic for discussion is Chicago this week. What is up with them, man?
I really don't know. You know, like I was saying earlier, I think you and I both expected them to come out and take this thing like a cakewalk, but that just wasn't the case. You know, I saw Scump tweet just a few days ago after the first day, namely to say that, you know, as an individual, he didn't play very well. And, you know, like I was saying before, again, you know, I kind of hate to call out specific players and specific teams, but he's kind of right in saying that he didn't play well individually. You know, when you're the captain of a team and you're the long-standing veteran, he's been playing longer than anyone on this team. He needs to step up and show that leadership and show how good of a player he is. And day one, he just didn't do it. Granted, they did skate by against Toronto. They did beat Minnesota, but day two, I think the struggles just continued for the team as a whole. You know, I mean, obviously in the Florida series where they got reverse swept, there was a lot of emotion there between Arcides and Pristini. I'm sure Scump and Sender were both trying to calm down Arcides, but when you have your number one flex guy struggling like that, you have to do something to get that guy back in the game. And Arcides is too dangerous of a player to let him get in his own head. And I do feel like that's somewhat of Scump's responsibility to take care of his guys. But losing one event it's not the end of the world. Obviously, we're so early into the season that it doesn't really matter too much. I mean, obviously it does matter. These guys want to win every single time they play, but you can't win them all. And I think these guys realize that. They're all veterans of the game. Anything you'd like to add to that?
All I know is that this week I was when I saw the brackets come out and I saw that Atlanta and Chicago weren't in the same um, groupings. I think everyone was kind of expecting to see an Atlanta Chicago finals, and I was just kind of disappointed not to see that because I believe those are the top two teams, and I would have liked to see them come out in the finals, and it's just kind of disappointing that they just didn't have it this week.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, Next thing we wanted to talk about, and I know this is your favorite team, so I kind of tailor made this one for you. How you feel about Minnesota coming out firing this week?
Yes, sir, Minnesota baby. Man, they came out firing. They wanted everyone's throats this week, man. I mean, you go from the young guns in Asim and Alex. Man, they played strong for how young they are. Um, they were flying around. They were playing young. They were playing reckless. They were creating havoc for every team they played. Um, and to back up the young guns, I mean, you got Assault, Goddard X, Silly, and I mean, Assault on them respawn games, especially Domination. I mean, I think he carried what almost a 1.4 KD through Domination this whole week.
Yeah, he
Um,
was playing incredible.
I know. Um, Goddard X was kind of playing a wild card this week. I mean, he certain maps against certain teams. especially Paris. He played very well in both series against Paris. He has their number for some reason. Um, but he was Minnesota's wild card. If they needed him to step up, he was always up to the challenge. And then Silly, which I believe is like he's their captain. He's their guy. He started out kind of slow though, in day one, but as matches started to go, I think he kind of got more comfortable and really stepped in and came in clutch in a lot of those series. Sadly, got reverse swept by Atlanta. Would have been insane if we pulled that match off, but no, I think we played good. I think we're an underdog team every week, and one time, man, we're just gonna come out. We're gonna kick the shit out of everyone, man. We're gonna win one of these.
Yeah, I fully expect for Minnesota to have a couple of wins under their belt at the end of the season. That is, like you were saying, they're a very good team. I mean, it does, like you said, it does suck to get reverse swept by Atlanta, but you got to think about it. At least you lost to the actual best team in the game. I mean, nobody else could really keep up with Minnesota this week in the matches that they were playing. They played incredibly well. I did notice, like you were saying about God RX being the wild card, during the Piccadilly Search and Destroy against Atlanta, God RX with a sniper is one of the better search and destroy players I've seen in this game. Give or take Wuskins, obviously, because he's kind of his own thing. But God RX with the sniper was really the game changer. I think he had 9 or 10 in that map, which is pretty impressive against a team like Atlanta. Um, but yeah, Minnesota does look like a team to be taken seriously. They got some incredible players on their team.
I know, man. I got hopes. I got hopes for them. I want to see a couple wins come from Minnesota, man. We're the king of the North, not Chicago. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
um, what do you think about Florida, man? I mean, they pulled this one out, or they didn't pull this one out. Sorry, they got to the finals. What do you think about them?
Dude, that kind of like I was saying in the recap, I don't think anybody other than the Florida Mutineers expected them to be there come this late in the tournament. When we were discussing this last week going through, I'm pretty sure we predicted Florida to get 3-0 bounced in their first 2 games. I mean, look who they played. They played London. They did lose 3-1 in that. Then they played Optic Gaming. We didn't predict them to lose that one, obviously, because like we were saying earlier, Optics had some struggles. But I definitely didn't expect Florida to make this deep of a run. They're a team to be taken seriously. They're the real deal. Pristini was playing out of his mind this week. I think more than anything, he was just looking for that matchup against Arcides. The emotions running high coming towards the end of that was a little hard to watch, kind of awkward, but he did play incredibly well. Um, Frosty kind of played a little slow during some games, but definitely picked it up with that World Championship experience coming over from Halo. Mox played incredible. All of those guys just played absolutely out of their mind. Persini was definitely the MVP of that team for me during this event.
I totally agree, man. I had no thoughts that Florida would ever make it to the finals. Maybe they make it to that round two after like one loss in day one, where they kind of sneak in to day two. But I'd never. I would have put so much money on Chicago to just. I would have put so much money on Chicago to sweep Florida in the semifinals. Like I would have never guessed that Florida would pull that out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, if I had 100,000 to bet, I would have put it on Chicago, and I'm glad I don't because I'd have lost a lot of money. But moving along, how you feeling about Atlanta, man? They're looking gross.
I mean, what can you say? Like, I mean, they don't need to change a thing. Like, they are just straight up the nastiest team out there. I mean, you got Simp. I mean, there's just. Is there anyone better in the game right now? I
I
mean,
mean, Maybe Wuskins makes an argument, but not really.
Okay, I'll give you that. Um, but no, I mean, you got Celium. I mean, he had to be the MVP this week, don't you think?
Oh, he was, yeah. They gave it to him after the event was over.
Oh, they did. Sorry, I don't know if I saw the end of that then. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't think Atlanta needs to change a thing. Whatever they're doing in their scrims, stick with it because I mean they're rolling through everyone. Granted, they did almost lose to Minnesota, but
That is true.
they just roll through everyone. They don't need to change a thing.
Yeah, those the tiny terrors as they call them, Simp and Abizi, those guys are absolutely disgusting. Just flying around the map with subs. It's actually pretty fun to watch, and I'm not even really a FaZe fan. But, like you were saying, Celium being MVP of this tournament, he was absolutely destroying on day one. Simp and Abizi both tweeted that they believe Celium is the best player in the game right now, which says a lot coming from those two guys because in my opinion, they're two of the top three in the game right now, disregarding Wuskin. Um, yeah, but this Atlanta team, I think Nameless had to do keys to victory in one of Atlanta's matches on day one, and their keys to victory literally just said, "Don't change anything, keep doing what you're doing." Like, if you're that good that even the casters don't see any holes in your game, then you're obviously doing something right.
Right? I totally agree. Um, but yeah, I mean I don't. Atlanta just doesn't need to change a thing. They're fine. Just keep scrimming. However you're doing it, something's clicking. Don't change. Don't fix what ain't broken. Um, what do you think about that Toronto Chicago in the first day? I believe it was the first game for both of them.
Yeah, I believe it was as well. Yeah, it was. It was the third match of the tournament.
I mean,
It
Toronto took
was
them to five. I mean, that's what do you think about
that
that?
was that was one of the more shocking matches of the tournament to me actually because, you know, I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. I don't really like to talk down about teams, just like when we were talking about Optic. I do believe every one of these teams has incredible amounts of talent. But Toronto is another one of those teams similar to OGLA where they just don't mesh well. They're not clicking well right now. So I didn't expect at all for them to come out and push Chicago the way they did. They were playing absolutely out of their minds. Methods was on a tear during the Hackney Yard hardpoint, I believe it was. Yeah, I mean, it's just like we were saying with a lot of these other games, especially with the Florida game. I mean, who really expected Toronto to take Chicago this deep? Absolutely nobody. I mean, it came down to the last game. It was 5-5. Round 11, search and destroy. Chicago had to clutch up. They should never be put in that situation by a team of Toronto's caliber. Not saying that Toronto, can't be a great team, but at this point in time, I don't think they're near the team that Chicago is.
I mean, I totally agree. I think we predicted what Chicago 3-0.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, like we just assumed it was. I mean, they were just a cakewalk essentially. Is I think what we were predicting. And I mean, for Toronto to come out, I mean, they just. I think that changed the whole mood for Chicago when they had to go game five to round 11 in S&D against Toronto. I think that changed the whole demeanor for Chicago, and I think they were just kind of scrambling the whole time after that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't really know what Chicago's issue is, man. They need to get it together quick, which they do have the next event coming up in Los Angeles in 2 weeks. They do have that event off, which is kind of upsetting to me. I kind of wanted to see formal play against his home crowd, but it's whatever. You can't win them all, I guess. Though they will be in Dallas though towards the end of March, and I would love to see another Empire versus Huntsman match. That would
You
be
you
absolutely
know it's
incredible.
gonna happen.
Oh, it has to.
It's gonna happen. You know it's gonna happen. I mean, that might be the biggest rivalry between like Scump, Formal, and Crim, dude. I don't know if there's a bigger rival than that one right now.
I don't think so. I don't. There's not a lot of not a lot of drama and beef in the COD community this year, which I do think is a good thing. I don't really care for all of the drama going around, but I do kind of like this beef between Dallas and Chicago. It's not even really a Dallas and Chicago thing. It's more like you were saying, more like formal Scump and Crim, because I've seen RCDs kind of get involved with talking a little on Twitter, and Clay gets a little involved, but those
Nothing
always
like those
escalate
two,
into
man.
yeah, those tweet interactions always escalate into like, yo, I got a lot of respect for you, bro. I'm not trying to dog your team or anything like that, but when you see Formal and Scump on stream talking about Krim, or whenever you see Krim on stream talking about those two, I believe it's legitimate dislike for each other and disrespect, which, I don't think is great for the scene, but
Oh, I love
it's
it.
fun to watch.
I love it. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but how do you feel about the two teams from across the pond? They're playing pretty decent, but I think they need to take another step to compete with these top teams, to be honest with you. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I totally agree. They looked okay. I think for Paris, Kismet needs to step up a little more. I think he had a real off week for Paris, and being their captain, I think he needs to be a little more he just needs to be a little more solid in whenever their next event is. And I mean, London, you got Wuskins. He's arguably the best player in Modern Warfare right now. I mean, you got his twin brother Scraps. He's out there. He played out of his mind, especially in Search and Destroy. They just need a little more help from their teammates, man. They don't have. It's hard to 2v5, man, and that's essentially kind of what London's struggling with. Is they're just playing with those two because they're playing out of their minds and they just don't have the help.
Yeah, I totally agree. Which is kind of odd because the other three guys on that team, if I'm not mistaken, other than Wuskins and Scraps, I believe it's Dylan, Jerd, and I'm not sure who their fifth is, but I know for a fact last year Dylan was rookie of the year. I'm doing that in air quotes because I'm not sure if there was actually like a trophy given for that, but
Mm-hmm.
Dylan was absolutely insane last year. Like he was one of the better players in Black Ops 4, and it was his rookie campaign. Jerd has always been a staple in EU Call of Duty. Like this guy's always been around, always been one of the top EU players. But in this game, it just seems like, they're not getting along very well playing this specific game.
Yeah, I totally agree. They just, I mean, those Wuskins and Scraps are a little different than I think the OGLA, where I mean, I think it's just those two are so much more like fundamentally sound than like the rest of their team. Where Optic LA, they have so many people that are just so good that they're just not a good mix. I think with London, I think they are going to figure it out faster than OGLA.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. Um, I also agree with what you were saying earlier. I think Optic needs to look into the substitutions more than anything because I'm not sure if it's their comms that's holding their team back or if it's just strictly poor play as a team because, like we were saying, all those guys can play well individually at any given time, but maybe they do need to look into a substitution. I know their subs are pretty good players, so I don't think it would hurt at this point of the season to kind of dig into that substitution roster and see what they can do.
Um, yeah, I don't think
Seattle
it hurt.
has
Yeah,
I know that Seattle has already reached into their substitution roster and benched Enable. I'm not sure who they put in, but I did hear on Twitter that Enable did get benched, which is mind-blowing because Enable is one of the top players in Call of Duty in my opinion.
I agree, man. He plays he plays tens with the boys almost every night that they're running them. So I mean, if he was that bad, I mean, he wouldn't get invited to play. So I mean, maybe there's bad blood somewhere with him and that team or something, to where just something's not clicking. And maybe that's what it is in OGLA. So hopefully they can figure something out.
Yeah, I think they do need to figure something out quick though, whether it be a substitution or whatever it is. But yeah, it is still pretty early in the season, guys. It's the only the third LAN event that they played. You know, the first event was the season opener in Minnesota, which wasn't really a tournament. It was more just like a kind of guys getting a feel for
Like,
being on LAN. This is the second actual tournament that they've played in. Chicago obviously winning in London, Atlanta winning their homestand, being the first team to actually defend home territory. Um, all of these guys, you know, all these teams that we're discussing that are struggling, the teams that are playing well, there's plenty of time left in the season for everything to flip completely on its head, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see this talented Optic Gaming roster or this incredibly deep with substitutions Toronto roster turn it around and be towards the top of the league come playoff time. I mean, it all of these guys are incredible talents, and I don't see any reason why anybody can beat anybody on any given day. It's just like every other sport. You agree?
I totally agree. Just like in golf, I mean, both of us are golfers. I mean, it's whoever's playing the best that given week is gonna win. So, I mean, with the amount of talent that all these teams have, like you said, whoever's playing the best, whoever's communicating the best, whoever's shooting the best, everything, whoever's just the best team is that week is gonna win.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I think that'll do it for Call of Duty Talk episode 2, guys. We appreciate you watching. Next week we'll actually discuss the lead up to the homestand of the Los Angeles Guerrillas and Optic Gaming in the Battle of Los Angeles, which takes place Saturday and Sunday, March 7th and 8th. That is not this coming weekend, but next weekend. Make sure you tune in to watch. All of the matches are streamed live on youtube.com/Call of Duty League. That's not a sponsored ad. That's just a plug because we enjoy their content. Um, but yeah, like I said, you know, thank you for watching. Make sure you leave a like on the video, comment down below suggestions for future videos or discussions. Follow us on social medias. That'll be linked all in the description. And we hope you have a good day. Peace out, guys.
RichyandPine signing off, baby. See you tomorrow.